Cool. We're ready to go.
Awesome.
So yeah, like I said, I just had a interview this morning, so I figured I'll let everybody know about that. So I had an interview this morning with a local middle school. It's actually the opposite middle school than what my girlfriend works at, which is pretty cool. And it's the one that I went through for middle school. I went there, attended there for obviously the 3 years, and it's kind of one of those jobs that, so it's a reading position where I'm just teaching reading is the whole idea here.
Yeah.
So they're splitting up their curriculum into a class for reading and a class for writing, which I think is a really cool way of doing it instead of just having one singular class, because then you're able to, kind of get deeper into those topics that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. Because I know with a lot of English curriculum, you're not able to do as much writing on the creative or nonfiction side as what you might be able to or might like to, versus when you're focusing all on the reading, it's very specified. You can't really broaden your horizons that much.
Absolutely.
It's actually, surprisingly enough, it's something that I'm excited for. Like, I actually could see myself doing this, which in the past wasn't necessarily wasn't necessarily something that I could have imagined, but I'm actually hopeful for getting this job. It's a 1-round interview, which is nice in the sense that I'll hear back sooner, but also terrifying because everything I said today that's it. That's as best as it gets. So but we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens with it.
I can only imagine what it's like to interview for a job at a middle school that you went to. That would give so many memories.
Yeah, it's funny too because so the assistant principal for this middle school is actually the person who taught my girlfriend in first grade.
Whoa!
so my girlfriend was like, "Yeah, so tell her I said hi and everything." And obviously they had made that connection before. So one of the first things as I sat down at this table, and it's 5 people, so it's the principal, the assistant principal, the reading curriculum advisor, and then 2 others who I can't remember what their roles were. But I have the assistant principal to the left of me, and as they're going around introducing themselves, I stop her after she introduces herself. Yeah. And I'm like, "Yeah, my girlfriend knows you." And she just gives me that look like, "How?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Oh," I tell her name, and she's like, "Oh, okay." And got onto this topic. And later on during the interview, towards the end, when I said that I had gone through this school, everyone was kind of like, "Oh, so did you know me?" Trying to figure out those kind of connections. And I think one of the interviewers there was it was either a teacher that I had or someone that I had seen quite often when I was going through the school. And like I said to them, I mean, it would be, from my understanding, because they work in pods is how they split up all of these 7th grade teams or these middle school teams. Yeah. So each grade level has a team of 4 different teachers. And from my understanding, the pod that I would be in for this role, I'd be working alongside of some of the teachers that I had when I was going through, which is like, and I expressed that. I'm like, this would be awesome. Like, it would be amazing to work with some of these teachers that I had that had influenced me in one way or another, and to have them as colleagues again. And I know the school, I know the curriculum, like I know the community especially. So it's one of those things, like I never thought I'd be as excited as I am about this prospect. Yeah. But I mean, just trying to figure it out and see and hope that something good actually happens from it. But yeah, man. So
wild.
Yeah, it is.
I can only imagine how intimidating it is to be around 5 other people for an interview. I mean, I've done group interviews before, but it's just not when they're all focused on you.
Exactly. I mean, the nice thing with this, so a couple episodes back, I talked about an interview that I had at another school that just went terribly, and it just was really no good. Right from the beginning, from the first question or two, I was like, yeah, I know I'm not going to get this job.
Yeah.
This is a totally different environment. Like the first question that they asked me was like an icebreaker. And it was, what would you choose as your last supper? I'm like, I have no idea.
Wow.
I'm like, yeah, okay. Oreos for everyone. Yeah, Oreos probably.
Great.
But I said like something like a chicken dish. Because I'm like, I'm not super huge on food. Like, I'm not thinking about what my last meal is going to be.
Yeah.
Everyone else, all 5 of them were like, oh, well, this is what mine would be. And like had it nailed down. And obviously they had been doing a couple of interviews before me and that kind of deal. But still, like, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
But seeing that kind of camaraderie and like just the very lighthearted sort of attitude that everybody had towards it was such a refreshing change. Like it's actually a group of people that I could see myself, working with and enjoying my time there. But yeah, I mean,
well, best of luck to you. I'm pulling for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll see what happens.
Yeah.
By the time that this episode goes live, I should know.
Cool.
And
fingers
good or
crossed.
for bad. Yeah, yeah. In other words, for everyone noticing, if you haven't realized at this time, Ben is not here with us this week. Instead, we have Andrew Baruffi, who is hanging out.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Of course. I mean, it's only been, a year in the making?
Yeah, right? We've been trying to chat for a while.
I know. It's like and trying to get you like to respond to emails is
awful,
I'm terrible.
Yep.
I
have no excuse.
I remember when you had submitted that article for us for Nature Vision magazine, and I sent Mary an email, just a little forewarning. I was like, let me know if he doesn't respond in terms of getting everything polished up and doing the copywriting and all of that. Let me know if he doesn't respond and I'll give him a little kick in the ass because I'm like, it's bad, but need a little assistant to do everything.
I don't know why I forget it. It's just, it's something I think I have to build up to an email. Whereas like, I don't know, like a message or a DM is a little quicker. I don't know for me.
Yeah. A little lighthearted, I guess, in a sense, but
like an email I have to focus on. I have to make sure I get everything right in there. I don't know. No excuse, really.
No, I don't know. I mean, I've been emailing back and forth with Guy Tall for the past 2 months or so, something like that. Every week or so, we'll send an email back and forth, and those always take me forever to kind of write. Like I actually have to put thought and effort into writing those, but everything else for email, I'm like, all right, quick, just send it off and it's done. But I don't know.
Man, and especially with Guy Tall, I mean, I assume it's kind of like the same thing with your interview, that intimidation of, I don't know, at least I would feel of like reaching out and making sure that everything I say is correct. And because I actually recently sent a book to Thomas Heaton.
Okay.
We've never talked before. We've never, emailed or anything like that. But I just felt like, he was such an important part of like my photographic upbringing, my origins. Yeah. I just felt like he deserved a copy of my book, even though he probably would never have known of me, if I didn't send him a book. But I don't know, it's always intimidating when you send something like that and you pour our heart into something and you hope that, I don't know, it's like, I don't know, fanboy kind of deal, but not quite, It's like, I appreciate Thomas Heaton, but, it's a thank you for more than anything.
Yeah. I mean, going back and forth with the guy, like, you think that it's something that's like in the very beginning when I first was emailing him, I was like, all right, I really got to focus on what I'm saying here. I really got to make sure everything's perfect. But now it's kind of like, at the end of the day, he's just another guy. Like, exactly. He is super intelligent. He is like on another level in terms of his thinking but there is so much to be gleaned from him. And at least I know from him, like he takes his connections with other people very seriously. Like he's not going to just have an ongoing conversation with anyone. So I'm very like thankful that he sees something in me or in my work that he at least appreciates to continue on with these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I definitely see that. Like I remember when I first started with the magazine, even before we did the magazine, when I was just doing the in charge of like reaching out to people for articles and stuff for the blog, I reached out to Simon Baxter and to Thomas Heaton. And both times I was like, these are guys like, just like you said, guys that are like super influential on me. Like these are the origins. Like I started landscape photography because of guys like Tom.
Mhm.
And so to be reaching out to them and being like, hey, you want to write this here? You have no idea who I am. You may have an inkling of what NPN is, but
Exactly.
otherwise it was, yeah, there's definitely an intimidation factor. But then they get back to you and they're like, again, just regular people.
Exactly.
Like I talked to Simon on here and it's just like talking to a friend about woodland photography and gardening.
Mhm.
It's weird how we get into those sort of mindsets. Like we just put so many people on such a heavy pedestal that it's like,
Exactly.
yeah.
But here's hoping. I don't know. He still has yet to pick it up from his P.O. box, so we'll see.
He's probably off in some like far-flung location, like photographing.
He was like in Spain or something, but
yeah. I don't know what he's. I don't keep track of him. I don't really watch his channel that much anymore. But every so often, I'll see something cool that he posts, and I'll be like, all right, I'll give you the 15 minutes. But
yeah.
So what have you been up to?
Work. This car thing. It's just been like full-on anxiety. You know, it's like I've never like experienced like real anxiety before, and this is actually going to tie into mental health actually pretty well, because back in the day when I was suffering from depression and suicidal ideation, I didn't really care about anything. It was more just like just dwelling on the fact that, you know, how am I going to kill myself next, or, you know, how am I going to make it to the next day? But now it's like just anxiety over the littlest things, and, you know, like this car thing and anything that happens in a day. It's just everything's just like the littlest things, the everyday things just compound on each other. And it's just, I don't know. But, you know, yeah, that's basically how I've been doing. I haven't been doing very well, but, you know, especially with photography, I've just been kind of falling off a bit. And, you know, it's summer season, so we're just trying to get through it.
Yeah. I find it funny that you say about summer season, just trying to get through it. Like winter is that for me. Like
really?
Winter entirely. I hate the winter, which is weird. It's not so much that part of it is the seasonal affective disorder. It hits me like a truck every single year. Like right around October or so, it just takes me out. And it's not until around this time of year, like between March to May, that now that I'm starting to be able to get outside more, to start gardening and that kind of deal. That I start to feel a little bit better, gain my motivation back a bit. Photography wise, during the winter, I mean, Pennsylvania sucks for it. It's like
Rochester sucks for it.
Yeah, I mean, like everything's brown. Everything is like we barely get any snow. So like this is the first year actually that I've been able to get out with a camera and you know, actually photograph a bit with snow and put some snow scenes in my portfolio once I finally update that. But I mean, for the summer, like I've got a trip coming up at the end of this month going up to Vermont.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, I'm going to actually be staying with, I don't know if you're familiar, Brenda Petrella. She runs outdoor photography school.
Last name sounds familiar, but
yeah. So we've had a relationship going since 2021, 2020, something like that. I was on her podcast, and we've kept in touch ever since, on and off a little bit. And she actually invited my girlfriend, Emmy, and I to stay with her for the weekend, which is great because we get to see the area. We have a place to stay. We don't have to worry about like major expense or any of that, especially bringing a dog with us is a pain in the ass. But I mean, summer is my time for like travel and that kind of stuff, like to actually get out more. So, and like I said, I also have the trip to the Palouse in beginning of June.
Yeah.
And then other than that, just camping around. So it's definitely weird to hear you say that summer is like your summer doldrums kind of time.
Yeah, and I wonder if it has to do with like, because you shoot black and white primarily,
and
I shoot color primarily. And it's like, I wonder if that has something to do with, because I can't stand the color green in my photos for the most part.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe black and white is just more overgrown. I have no idea about black and white because I'm terrible at it. But
I mean, I've been doing it for 7 years and I still think I suck at it. So, you know,
I love it.
No, it's weird though. Like, yeah, I don't know. I haven't shot color. I did once for my second cousin's first birthday. I was photographing his party. And obviously that's not something that is going to go public anywhere besides like my cousin's page, Facebook page, and family kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
I photographed color just because they wanted it in color. And
Mhm.
as I'm going through, I edited everything in black and white first, and then I just clicked the color button. I'm like, all right, good enough.
I love
I think I checked the white balance a little bit just to make sure that skin tones weren't like super yellow or anything stupid
Yeah.
like that. But otherwise, I can't see in color.
Yeah.
Just can't with that. But
Well, I can't stand the heat or bugs or anything like that. So I love it as
yeah.
cold and as bleak as possible.
and yet you plan on moving back to Utah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because that makes sense.
yeah, it makes sense. I don't know. I think it's that stark like dryness to everything. There's no humidity. There's just everything's either red rock or like slate, kind of gray. And
yeah,
most of the trees are going to be evergreen out there. And you get your occasional aspen. I mean, you get a lot of aspens, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I just like that almost clinical nature out there versus here, which is just very
chaotic
and overgrown. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's what makes woodland photography. That's what's been both great for me as a photographer and also absolutely terrible. Like trying to find compositions. Like I look at the work of Simon Baxter and I'm like, how do you do it? How are you finding these scenes?
I never understand.
No. But meanwhile, I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to point my lens at the ground. Like 9 times out of 10, look at small scenes and go from there. Because that's the easiest thing to do.
It is. Yeah. I'm glad I focus on the smaller stuff. But at the same time, it's tough out here because the smaller stuff is often just like disgusting mud on the ground. Or I don't know, like you have to go out to like Lake Ontario and it's just this gross fishy smell. And I can't take it. But
yeah. I was surprised when you found that. What is it? The natural oils in the forest that one time a couple months ago. That's something that I've been dying to find, but I can't see like the local areas that I go to. I can't see anything. I can't find it. I'm like, all right, yeah. And
I mean, especially now that I've kind of like realized. I can't remember his name. He was a photographer that talked to me on Instagram, but he actually told me what that natural oil was, and it was like an iron bacteria and how that interacts with water, and blew my mind. But it makes sense for the area, when you have that kind of gross, disgusting mud that would happen naturally,
right.
But I don't know, it's so hard to find. But
yeah.
Zion's really wealthy in it for sure.
Yeah, that's an area I really want to go and photograph, but at the same time I'm like almost intimidated because I see like the work that you pull away from it, the work that Ben pulls away from it. And I'm like, am I going to get anything unique here besides the fact that, I'm photographing in black and white and, that's so cool.
Zion is like this place that so many people like think is the grand landscape. I don't know, with Ben and I, especially, we kind of focus on those smaller scenes, but even with his most recent video, he actually released an image that was like this wide angle scene. I don't know if you saw that. And that was like something I never ever expected from Ben,
No, not at all. I saw that one. I'm like, oh, that's actually, wow. Okay. It's obviously it's well done, but like definitely not something that anyone I think would have ever expected him to do.
Exactly.
I always like going through the comments on his videos and just being like, all right, so who's reacting to this in what way?
Exactly.
Like a bunch of people being like, oh, you should do more of this. And everything that I hear about that park is like, you don't understand how difficult it is to properly compose a grand landscape in Zion. Like,
but I mean, when it comes to the smaller scenes, and this is where I kind of like diverge from a lot of photographers, is I find it so easy to find the smaller scenes. Probably because I know a lot of the areas where to go, but it's so simple to me based on season. It's like if leaves are falling, you're going to find a lot of leaves on the ground. If ice is present, you're going to find a lot of scenes of ice. If natural oils are present, you're going to find natural oils all throughout the park in so many different areas. And I don't know, it's more of a thing of just showing up, and you're going to find things. And I don't want to sound like immodest for finding scenes easily or thinking that I find scenes easily, because I know I do struggle quite a bit when I'm there as well. But sorry, my cat is.
It's all right. I'm surprised that Emmy's like fallen fast asleep behind me already.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the noise that just sets her off. Something's going to happen.
But yeah, it's just I find Zion when I know when to go exactly the right time of the year. It's easy for me.
Yeah.
But I can never ever imagine shooting a grand landscape in Zion and actually being happy with it. Especially something as beautiful as Ben shot. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I kind of feel the same way with when it comes to small scenes. Like it is easier for me to find them now than it ever was
Mhm.
because of having so many years of practicing with it.
Yeah.
Like I go into the forest, and because it's so difficult to find, like, to really compose in the forest, you rely on those smaller scenes to sort of guide your way through it. And there are plenty of days where I won't come back with anything. I'll go on a walk with Emmy, and that'll produce nothing but a 5-mile exercise.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there are other days where I'll come back. I went on Tuesday and came back with 4 photographs that I'd taken.
Mhm.
One I knew was no good when I had photographed it, but it was more of an experiment sort of deal.
Yeah.
The other one, I went through a bunch of iterations. It's these white leaves that are stuck on top of almost like a mossy sort of seaweedish kind of material that makes a nice little curve throughout the frame. And I photographed that. Like, I think I made 5 or 6, maybe 5 photographs of that scene, just trying to work it a little bit and get it just right. Because of how I had to position myself. It was like on a little bit of a hill, and I wanted to get closer, but obviously I'm working with a prime lens, and trying to get closer when I'm at the water's edge is not the safest bet, especially with Emmy, like, just laying there aside of me waiting for us to go. Yeah. But then in terms of the other 2, like, there was one that I just knew worked right away. I'm like, this is just from years of practice, but at the same time, I don't want to, my mind won't allow me to admit that, yes, this photo actually works. This is something that I'm happy with. Like, I keep overthinking everything because I'm like, this was too easy. There has to be something wrong with it. Like, I send a screenshot of it over to David Kingham. I'm like, hey, how does this look to you? And he's like, good. Like, this is cool. This is great. Yeah. I'm like, no, you're wrong. Like, I show my girlfriend, and she's like, yeah, this is really nice. Like, I like all these details. And I'm like, no, you have to be wrong. Like, there's somebody here needs to tell me that I am correct in thinking that I'm a terrible photographer. It's weird how the mind works with that. Like, photography can be such a healing thing for me, but at the same time, it leads to a ton of stress, a bunch of anxiety in its own right, and like just a lot of doubting my abilities, because I just cannot allow myself, no matter who tells me otherwise, I can't allow myself to believe that what I'm doing, especially recently, is right and is good.
Yeah. And I mean, compounding on that, I mean, were you shooting that on film or GFX?
I've been using the GFX exclusively since I bought it from you.
Nice. Yeah. So I mean, I guess that's a little less pressure off. You're not just throwing money at film.
Yeah.
But still, it's something that, I mean, it's going to cause a lot of anxiety in the moment because you're just stressing over. I don't know. I mean, especially, I don't know if you feel the same, but right now I just feel like I need to produce some amount of work. Even if it's terrible and bad, I don't know, just throw it on Instagram and see what happens. I know you haven't been on Instagram as of late, but yeah, it's a tough time. I mean, I know it's a good time for you, but it's tough when you get into these ruts.
Yeah. I mean, like, Guy will always say about that creative incubation is like, it's necessary. It's necessary to have these times, because even though he just said in the latest email, let me pull it up quick. Yeah, he said that all creative work involves periods of subconscious incubation, requires leisure time to free the mind to come up with ideas and strategies, consider possibilities, etc. Sitting in front of a blank page and coming up empty is an experience every creative writer knows very well. Just because you don't feel consciously productive doesn't mean your brain is idle. It may in fact be working very hard trying to make connections and associations before you become conscious of them, which may feel like an aha moment, but in fact is just the point when the subconscious work is done and handed off to the conscious part of your brain.
Wow. And that was just an email he wrote?
Yeah. That's what you expect, or what you can expect when you're conversing with Guy about just,
So poetic, so beautiful. Wow.
But I mean, like I said, like he said, those times are necessary for us. And Especially right now, like lately, I've felt so, and I don't know if you've felt this, especially going into summer, but like directionless, having
Yeah.
no idea where you're headed or what path you're on, if the path that you're on is right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially the past year, not having a job for me has been like only like exacerbating all of this.
Absolutely.
And so it's just weird to try and think of it as subconscious incubation, that it's necessary when all it feels is like rumination.
Yeah.
I'm just so stuck in my head lately. Like, I'll be working, like, so right now I'm working on a series, really doubling down on this series, Memento Mori,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a series of photographs of skulls and bones, carcasses, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like, my mind has just been obsessed with death lately. Like ever since I got back from Colorado and during my trip to Colorado, my mind has just been like really obsessed with the idea of death, and not so much in the sense of suicidal like ideations or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
But it's more in the sense of like just thinking about mortality, thinking about death a lot. And this is kind of like that series, really shining through, those thoughts really shining through with this series. And even like the more recent work that I've been doing, I was talking to David about it. And I'm like, he asked me, what kind of story are you trying to tell with your photography like these days? And with this series, I'm like, it's a story of the dichotomies of life and death, and like the beauty of death, and that it's just a way to show that there's beauty through every stage of life. But it's weird, especially coming from a background where 10 years ago, I didn't think that I would make it past 18.
Mm-hmm.
And now to be thinking of death, like I said, not as I want to take my own life, but more as I am fascinated by this idea, by these concepts.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, my origins of photography were all around distraction, this concept of distraction, which I wrote an article for NPN. And but it's this idea that Zion and photography were these distractions for me. And nowadays, even though I'm not really doing much photography, I want to kind of sell my camera. I want to sell all my photography gear because I don't do anything. I don't do anything with it. And I feel like that would put me on a path of figuring out what I want to do with photography if I sold all my stuff and got rid of it and get it out of here. But back in the day, I can't even imagine what I would have done without a camera, without, pointing a lens at something every single day after work and going into Zion, going up the mountains and exploring southern Utah. Like, without a camera, I wouldn't be here. But now I think without a camera, I might actually understand what I want to do with photography again, because right now it's not about mental health. It's about sustaining this concept that I'm a photographer. I built something for myself through, photography and understanding that depression, suicidal ideation was so central to that. But nowadays, I just feel like the camera is almost in the way of something, and I can't really put my finger on what that is. But and I've even gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm wondering if I even want to go to Zion ever again. Actually take trips to Zion, and because I do take 2 out of the year. I take one in fall and one in winter. I don't know if it's doing anything for me, and that might come down to the fact that, with Instagram, and because I put a lot into Instagram, I know that, and I know it's a bad thing to do, but especially social media is terrible, but at the same time, it's like my business and selling my book, and, all of my stories are written on Instagram. It's this thing that is part of me. And now that Instagram is literally doing absolutely nothing for me, with engagement, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It's tough.
Yeah. Like I said, that directionless, not having a direction is killer for motivation for anything. Like, I have all of these ideas for even this Memento Mori series. Like, my problem is that in a sense, I'm a dreamer. And so I have so many ideas all of the time around various things. Like, I just read, for this upcoming issue of the magazine, I reviewed Alex Nail's The Great Wilderness.
Beautiful.
And it's not a book that I would have picked up on my own. It's not a book that I would have bought myself, but in retrospect, it's something that like I'm fascinated by now. Like I read all the stories, I read everything that he wrote in that book, and then looked at those photographs in a totally different light because they're grand photographs or photographs of grand scenes, and that's just not my thing. But to see the reasoning behind them and to see his thought process behind everything totally changed the way that I was looking at it.
Yeah.
And so afterwards, I'm like, oh, well, how can I make a book of similar... Like my mind immediately goes to, well, I have the Adirondack Mountains right by me or the Appalachian Trail. I'm like, all right, cool. How can I make a book around those areas? Like my mind goes to the end product and I want to get to the end product with everything as soon as possible. Like I think about this Memento Mori series. I'm like, all right, so what's this series look like in its final form? And how can I get there tomorrow?
Yeah.
But the reality, of course, is that like you can't get to that quickly. Like realistically, it's going to be another couple of years before I have any sort of book with my name on it.
Yeah.
Like I look at the book that you made and the fact that you have 3,000, a little over 3,000 followers on Instagram, something around that. And I'm like, how the hell did you do it? Because like, obviously having the financial backing is one thing, but
that's most important.
Right. But at the same time, you also need that, that audience to sell through and to be able to market everything properly and get the sales to get that money back and to actually have it be a quote unquote successful endeavor. But yeah, I mean, just trying to figure out any sort of direction. Like that's why I'm leaning on writing so much more, because the times when I'm not out photographing I'm trying, and recently I've been failing tremendously to start writing more frequently, but I'm just trying to lean on some other creative outlet. So maybe that's something that you need to be doing, like put the camera away, not necessarily sell it, because could you imagine trying to buy all that stuff back?
No.
But at the same time, like have a different creative outlet for a while and see where that takes you, especially for the summer, if that's your like least creative period of time. Like spend the time just writing about your photography and produce a little zine or ebooks or something else.
Yeah, because I mean, I always think about like what else could I do? And is photography is the only thing I cared about for a very long time, and still it's the only thing I care about really when it comes to like hobbies and whatnot. But when I go onto YouTube, I'm looking at photography videos all day long, and I'm trying to figure out something, and even writing is tough. It's not tough to like do it in the moment. I found, whenever I want to like share a photo or something and I have to write a story for it because that's so important to my brain. It's easy to write a story right then, but it's like impossible to write any other point in time. And I'm just wondering, it's like, what would be the best trajectory for me? But, and with yesterday, the new, and this is only going to really appeal to Fujifilm GFX owners, but the GF 500 was announced, and I was just over the moon because I thought maybe I could get back into wildlife photography again, and that would be great for summer. But I don't know, it's still $4,000 of money I don't have. So
yeah, I mean that's why I just adapt lenses.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean with this Palouse trip, I'm renting the Pentax 645 400 mil 5.6 lens.
Beauty.
I'm like, all right, cool. So that covers about 300 mil equivalent or so, and that gets me the rest of the way. Like I said, it's weird how that tech really doesn't affect me any, because like tech announcements like that don't really do anything for me because I'm very, very, very happy with the kit that I have.
Yeah, like
it is a perfect replacement for me for the 4x5.
Yeah, like
coming over to digital, came at a great time. It all came together quite nicely, but I can definitely see how, I mean, for some people that is like all that it takes is getting a new lens, getting a new camera or some sort of new equipment just to try out to spark that creativity back again.
Yeah.
But for others, it's a matter of I just need to chill out for a bit and try something else, put the camera away, ignore it for a while. And by the time that you go back to Zion for the fall, then it's going to be sparked back up. You'll be missing it again.
Absolutely.
And hopefully that'll be the case. And it's not the opposite where you're just like, I could live without this anymore. But
GFX is perfect for Zion, in my opinion, but it is horrible for Rochester because there's just nothing grand here. Everything is just small little birds and, wildlife migratory areas, which is great, but it does not lend itself well to, that grand, I don't know, just really showing off resolution and depth. And I don't know, but yeah, we'll see.
I think one of these days, sooner rather than later, we got to get together, figure out a way to get together. And
we do.
Since we're
2 feet from each other, basically.
And I'll show you how it's done in the forest,
Yes. Yeah,
show you all my little tips and tricks that I've learned over the past how many years to maybe eventually come away with a decent photograph.
No. Incredible work. I always think I always see your work as, I don't know if you follow Ben Lockett on Instagram or anything. Have you ever seen his work?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, it's extremely I don't know how to.
Yeah. Ben and I have talked before. I know that's
okay.
It sounded familiar for a minute. Him and I talk every so often on the through Discord now.
Yeah,
we'll chat about because he just got around the same time that I got the GFX. He got the Hasselblad mirrorless XCD2, I think it is.
Yeah,
whatever their equivalent is. Same sensor. It's the same thing anyway. But yeah.
I always, because I see both of your photographs, or both images, your work essentially, and I always see this connection of almost these images look like memories more than anything. And I always work for those type of images, but my images generally come out a little too clinical. But I always want to embrace that kind of memory type image because it's so beautiful to me, but it's so difficult for me to comprehend how that works. And you two just do it so well. Blows my mind.
Yeah. I mean, the work that I'm creating now is with that system it's so weird to work with digital now because I'm going to send you in the chat here.
Oh yeah.
So this is the Memento Mori series. That's the page that I'm working on for my website. And for everyone else listening, I'm going to throw a link in the show notes to it. Just a little sneak peek. But
I just love this stuff. It's so documentarian, but just I already see a book right here. I mean, it's so easy for me to at least see this, but
yeah. I mean, you talk about we talk about being directionless and not being sure of where we want to go with any of our stuff. But I think something I need to take a lot more seriously is just following my curiosity. Right now, my curiosity is just around death and around this series and showcasing the beauty of that dichotomy. And it's something that I really want to delve into more, both in my writings as well, because and talking about the philosophies of death and that kind of deal. And I could, like I said, I'm a dreamer in the sense that I could just foresee a book coming out of this. I could foresee folios, a presentation, various ebooks, presentations on both the philosophical side of death, but also the beauty of photographing it. It doesn't have to be skulls and carcasses and that kind of deal, but it could be just a dying flower or a mushroom, a mushroom coming to life and just seeing that, the changes in that. But again, it's a matter of I go from 0 to 100. And then because of going from 0 to 100, I'm I get down on myself, my anxieties pop up and I start to get depressed because I can't get to that point right away and how I want to. Yeah.
I mean, even starting a book is just, it's always intimidating. I think intimidation is a theme to this episode. But, where do you start and how do you contact a publisher or something? Did you ever think about self-publishing or do you want to go through a publisher?
That's the problem. I want to self-publish.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I like what Platinus Editions has done with your book and with William Neal's. They worked on a couple others. I like them, but at the same time, I constantly go back to if I think of my ideal life, and I've talked about this before, I think of me sitting in a quiet cabin in the woods with my nice big garden in the backyard, and having plenty of woods to just roam in and explore and just spend my days writing and photographing and ultimately producing once a year, every other year, whatever, these highly real fine art books like that are just very beautifully produced, that are aesthetically pleasing. They're great to hold. And the more that I think about it too, to expand on that even further, is just making a single edition of these, or making a single print run of these books, where there's 1,000 out there and that's it, and not touching it again. But that's what I mean. Like I want to self-publish everything. I want to do everything to the highest quality possible, and I don't want to skimp on that at all.
Yeah.
And that obviously becomes an issue because that elongates the amount of time that it takes to do something like this. Because in order to find the financial means of doing something like this, and like the only thing that I could think of would be kickstarting it. But even still, you need like the marketing know-how, and you really need to have everything in order to do something like that. But I mean, for you, what do you think of when you think of like your ideal life? Like, especially thinking now with the, like how you're feeling right now around photography. Like if you were to give up photography, or what, if you could have it your way, what would you do?
Oh, so easy. I think about it every single day. It is giving up everything, moving to, well, not giving up. Obviously, I would still love to do photography, but move to Springdale, Utah, right outside Zion, become a park ranger at Zion, and I would die happy, you know. And if Tessa, my partner, if she like worked at Dixie State, or actually it's Utah Tech University now, or Southern Utah University, or any of the universities out there, you know, with philosophy, that would be incredible. You know, we would live a very happy life until the end, and it'd be beautiful. But and of course, I would love to still do photography, because I think, you know, it's not that I think that what I do in Zion is very unique. I think a lot of people can do what I do in Zion very easily. But I think it's more the knowledge of the place. I think it's very difficult to actually have that knowledge and to visit it constantly and to embrace the area more than anything. But yeah, I mean, even as a janitor, I would be happy, you know, cleaning toilets in Zion. You know, that'd be my absolute life, because I have such a, what's the word? Anchor, I guess is the best word for it, in Zion. You know, it's just a place that I will always feel happy. I will always enjoy the sunshine and enjoy the heat and enjoy the cold and the bleak moments, you know, despite how difficult they might be to photograph.
Right. Yeah. So then with, like, obviously that's, at least in theory, or from how it sounds, that's a lot easier to accomplish than what mine is.
Well, yeah.
But like, so I'm curious, what stops you besides Tessa going through her PhD program? What stops you from doing that?
Well, it's just that. I mean, honestly, it's she's got about a year left, and we'll see where we're headed based on, you know, job prospects. But we're hoping back west with our families, and but it might stay here in Rochester, and I might just have to commute back and forth to Zion and my family. But it's a very attainable goal when you look at the big picture. But I don't know. It's all up in the air still.
Yeah, I mean, that's something else that I've thought of doing. Like with this job interview, like I'm thinking like, okay, is this something that I could actually see myself doing long term? Like not just a year. Like this is a long-term substitute position that I was interviewing for. So it is strictly from August until June. And after that, it's a matter of, okay, do I get a contract or do I get booted off for somebody else? Ideally, you get the contract. But it's, when I think about the job stuff now, especially, it's so much more so about like, what could I actually see myself doing and enjoying? Where could I be challenged? How could I get a job that's actually going to help me grow? And like you, like I always think about moving up to like Maine or Vermont area. I'm like, I could move up to Maine and I could be a park ranger for Acadia, and I could probably be good with that. Like I could probably be happy with that. Just photographing on the side a little bit, because that's always going to be a part of my life. And writing here or there, but making my money through something like being in nature. Nature has to be a major part of my life, no matter what. But I don't know. at the same time, I have major conflict with that because I have so many ideas, so many goals that I'm like, would I actually be happy doing that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I went to school, I got my bachelor's in history and film and screen studies. So it was a pretty useless degree in the end of, college. But I always thought like, I was always good at customer service because of my family's coffee shop back in Utah and, working at REI now, in the outdoor industry. But still, it's just, even thinking about going and working at Zion, while I would love that, is just like interacting with visitors and tourists sounds like hell. And how they destroy the park and how they litter and how they vandalize. And it would just kill me every single day. But if I could, I hate to jump on this, but leave it better than I found it, clean up after them. But it would make me feel better as a person, especially because I know the places they attack the most. And, I don't know. But at the same time, it would really hurt to do the thing I love the most. Yeah. I guess photography is kind of following that path a little bit now. It kind of hurts to do the thing I love the most. And I don't know if it's fully in my future yet, but we're teetering. We're teetering on the edge. But hopefully it stays with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I couldn't imagine my life without it. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm kind of okay not making a living off of it.
Yeah.
In the sense, or like having it so front facing. Like, like I want to focus on my writing, and like eventually when my new website goes live, like it is writing forward. Like that is the primary reason for this website, is to put my writing front facing, and kind of have my photography be almost supplementational. Like, and obviously that changes things like how I want this Memento Mori series to come together. Like, do I want, I don't think in terms of coffee table books, like where it's just a bunch of photographs in a book. Exactly. And maybe an introduction and a conclusion or foreword, whatever. I think more of like, what kind of essays can I create? And these photographs will help to supplement them. Yeah. Like I think more in lines of the type of books that Guy Tall makes.
Exactly.
Where, it's you get it because you want to read the essays.
Exactly.
Not just because you want to look at the photographs. And like, I could see self-publishing, or I even debate, like, because the problem with self-publishing, as much as I want to go self-publishing route because, I want to make as beautiful of products as possible. It's the same reason why I photograph and why I write. I want everything to be as polished as I can, and as I can have it. But at the same time, and like what Guy said to me, he's like, he went through Rocky Nook for his books, and that's like publication route, because he doesn't want to think about he hates editing. He hates going through all of like the logistics of everything. He just wants to send them the essays, send them a batch of photos, everything gets put together, and he doesn't have to think about it. And I'm like, that's like
interesting.
What is more important to you, doing the writing and creating the work, or polishing everything up and making sure all the logistics line up and doing all of that work as well? And like, to me, I'd rather spend my time writing and photographing than dealing with everything else. But
and I mean, I don't know what the self-publishing route actually is. I mean, with Jerry and Mountain Trail Press, now Platinus Editions, or maybe they're two offshoots, I'm not quite sure, but he basically designed the whole book for me. I mean, I basically plugged in images and plugged in words, because I had everything written down and all my photos edited. And we just worked through the process. And it was very interesting because I never felt like I was fully a part of it. I always felt like I was very detached from my book, even though it took a year to do. And I had to do all the little issues that happened with the cover and, the cover art and signatures. Yeah, it was interesting because I never felt like I was part of, I was definitely never part of the printing process or anything like that. I never had any connection to that. It was my book was made. That's what happened. And, but with InDesign, Adobe InDesign, and just plugging things in, it was so simple. But it's still like I knew exactly what it looked like, and I can only imagine what like Guy Tall's experience was. Just like, hey, here's some photographs, here's some words, do what you will with it. I can only imagine what that was like, because that seems like even more detached than how I felt. But wild, yeah.
Like I said, I can't speak exactly for the
Absolutely.
exact experiences that he went through with it. But like I said, I don't know. I go back and forth because like you, I don't want to be detached from a final product. It feels weird to have this final product that, yeah, it's your photographs, it's your writing, whatever. But at the end of the day, you had so little hands-on experience with it. And then to sell that
Yeah.
and be like, here you go, guys. Like, to me, that's weird. Like, I would much rather have, at the end of the day, I just want a product that is beautiful, that is very well done, that I can be truly proud of selling to other people and having people collect in their homes and that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest aspect for me. But
Absolutely.
how that gets done, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like.
I don't know what that looks like either. Because I mean, with my book, I had a ton of, well, not a ton. I don't want to say that. I had a few defect copies that, had marks on the covers, had smushed corners, had pages stuck together, whatnot, that ultimately were like unsellable.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know what to do with them. I mean, up until recently, I was just going to kind of keep them. And then recently I was like, maybe I should just throw them away. And I was like, that doesn't feel great.
No, I can't imagine it does.
That doesn't feel great at all. Despite, these pretty glaring defects, but still at the same time, it's still a book that I produced and, put my heart and soul into. And what do you do with that? I don't know. But I decided to go down the route of, these blemished copies and selling them half price and hopefully doing some amount of good by donating, half of the proceeds to Zion Forever Project and NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I think that's something, obviously they're still going pretty slow, for what we're doing, but it's tough when you pour your heart and soul into something and there's some amount of problem to it. I got very lucky with my book and especially with publishing with Platinus Editions was for REI, because they actually bought a couple cases of my book at REI, but they required a publisher. Like they were able to do self-publishing because it was conflict of interest because I worked there and whatnot. So it was pretty much a godsend that I was able to publish a Platinus Edition for that. But when Zion Forever Project actually bought my book to gift to their staff, almost 300 copies for making it through the pandemic was that lucky moment where I was able to pay off the book with that. Otherwise, I would still be struggling to pay this book off. I'm fairly confident because, again, a lot of my business kind of falls through Instagram, and I really don't know how to market myself any other way. I can throw all my stuff on a website, as much as I can, but how do you market a photography book that you have to open and hold and feel the cover and read the stories, and even Zion Forever Project themselves said it was a difficult book to retail for their visitor center. And I thought, oh, that's a shame. But, this is like the book for Zion, for what I do. And the fact that they couldn't retail it there, what other place could possibly retail this book if not Zion Visitor Center themselves? So, yeah,
that whole marketing aspect of this business is difficult to say the least. Like I've only started to get my name out there because of this podcast, and especially because of working with NPN and having those graces come to me. But even still, it's like the little zine that I'm selling for my Colorado trip. Like I have, I think 4 copies left out of 10, and it's been a couple months. I'm like, all right, there's no way in hell I'm being able to sell a book. I'm not going to be able to sell through 1,000 copies unless I have a place like with you, with like REI, that are just going to buy a couple cases. Like it's, I don't know. It's tough. It's like my biggest thing is newsletters, especially now not being on social media. And especially even if I was on social media, the reach obviously being abysmal. So I'd much rather rely on newsletters. And I always push like Ben to use his newsletter more because, it's, I don't know, it's something that you control. And that's been the same way for the past 25 years or however long it's been popularized. More than that now, I think. But still, I don't I still wonder what the proper route for something like that is too. And I go back and forth on that. And that's just part of how I am, where I'm constantly like overthinking every little aspect of my life and every little detail of these ideas that I have. Like, how do I, best make this happen in the way that I want to see it happen? And for me, a lot of that is through writing newsletters, but what do they look like at the end of the day? Like, I don't want to be that guy that's just, at one point, I don't want to be the guy that's sending out 5 cool ideas every Friday, like where it's just a bunch of links for other people's work. But at the same time, I don't want to just be marketing my own stuff and just be shilling my own products. So how do I find that happy medium? And trying to figure that out is difficult. But I definitely think that's something that more photographers have to realize, come to terms with, of start the newsletter, run the newsletter, and see how that goes. Plug it on your Instagram, use Instagram as a funnel into your newsletter instead. But even then, it's difficult. It's tough. You just, like I said, you have to follow your curiosities in every way and just try different things out and experiment. And it's something that I have to do as well, that everybody has to do. Just try different things. And I know I keep mentioning Guy with this, but he's even like pivoting. And he mentioned to me the other day or the other week, he said that he is, in future writings, he's working to get away from talking about photography so much and to kind of work away from that. I'm like, and so I responded to him, like, how do you foresee that shift happening? And he just real simply, he's like, I don't. He's like, I'm as curious as anyone else is to see how this goes and to see what happens.
Damn.
And that is a mindset that I want to have for all of my work. Like, I just want to follow my curiosities and just see where it goes. But the perfectionist in me keeps fighting against that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, even with Instagram, and especially as of late with the engagement being so low, it irks me a little bit when you see the photographers that have like a huge following, where just one little share of like an image or a story of my book or something like that could sell maybe 5 more copies that day. It's like, when it's so easy, but at the same time, there's like no possibility of like, hey, help me out, without saying, hey, help me out,
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't know, with publishing with Platinum editions, while I do love the amount of work that Jerry's put into it, and it's tough to like see what might this have looked like if I went self-publishing, because, selling through Zion would have been just as simple, but, 2 cases to REI's, not selling a whole bunch of books. So I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we move on.
Yeah. My brain's about fried.
Yeah, same. It's been a long day. It's been such a long day.
Do this interview this morning too. I always hate it too, because like I'll go to these interviews and I love the idea of teaching. I want to help people, and that's why I focus. That's part of the reason why I focus with NVM, like on highlighting photographers who otherwise don't have an audience or a pedestal to stand on, and try to give them that through the magazine, through what's already been built up over the years with the Nature Photographers Network. And like I said, I love teaching, but I'll go into these interviews, and it's just like the questions that they're asking. I'm like, I don't have the experience to answer these questions like as well as someone else would. Like, I don't have as strong of a grasp on the curricular intricacies and vocabulary as I do when it comes to like writing or photography. And so for me to sit there and just feel like I'm trying so hard to answer these questions in a way that they want me to answer them, but at the same time be honest in myself with them. And it takes so much mental effort for me, and it just fries my brain. And I'm just like done for the day. Like, I don't want to think about anything else. But, oh man.
I think that's what anxiety's been doing to me as of late. Just dwelling on everything, thinking about what's going to happen. I don't know. We'll see. We're we're in a place right now, and we'll get out of it soon, I'm sure. But
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I mean, talking to Guy helps with that, but at the same time, like, I just, I need to stop consuming so much shit. Like, I sit at the desk because I don't have anything else to do. I'll sit at the desk all day long and just stare at my computer and just fiddle with stupid shit. I'm like, none of this is helping me. Like, this isn't doing anything for me, you know? It's just, I should be spending my time reading and writing, but I don't have the motivation to just sit and read and write without getting distracted and constantly distracted. It's something that I just have to work to push myself out of, you know?
Yeah.
But it's tough trying to get to that spot, especially coming from months and months of being so demotivated from, and the weather affecting my mood so much. It's terrible.
Yeah, I found myself going into my Lightroom catalog and just re-editing the same images over and over again, see if I have anything different. I don't know. We'll try some new things. We'll stick some SD cards in and see if there's anything different that I missed on my past trips. And there's never anything. My first go-through was always good enough. Luckily, we have some good things to look forward to, you know. I got a wedding coming up with Tessa, and that's going to be phenomenal. Yeah. Hopefully a fall trip after that, and we'll see.
When are you planning that wedding?
October 5th in Utah, so.
Nice.
Parents' backyard. Keep it easy.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's something that Mel and I have been talking about more recently. Which, I mean, she's far too many steps ahead because not engaged yet, but, you know. But it's still a conversation that we have. And it's like, I'm very glad that she is more in line with the idea of eloping somewhere. Like, let's just spend like $5,000, $10,000, whatever, on a trip to New Zealand. And let's elope in New Zealand, and we spend 2 weeks there and we enjoy the hell out of it. And then we come back and we can throw a little party for $5,000.
Exactly.
In my backyard, like my parents' backyard, because we have the property, and we can have as many people there as we want to have for the most part. And we don't have to worry about a $15,000 or $30,000 dress and $30,000 for a venue and catering and on and on. And I'm just like, I can't. I'm like, I would like a house one of these days. Yeah. Like, I would like my own house sometime, my own property. And now you're talking about spending all that money on a wedding. And I'm like, that just cut into any sort of savings that you would have towards a house and just obliterated it. But
weddings are always a lot, but luckily our ideas of weddings are nice and simple and constrained in a good way. We'll see. I have a great photographer. I contacted Erica Bauer. I don't know if you've known her, Zion Adventure Photog on Instagram. She's phenomenal. I'm very excited, and we're going to do a little couple shoot in Zion, and then she'll do the backyard wedding for us. So it'll be nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just looking at her work now on our website.
Very beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine photographing people. Ugh, terrible.
I did it for a little while. I was in high school when I was doing it. So 2014 to 2016 or 17, something like that. But high school girls are super unreliable. Yeah. Especially when it comes to and especially their confidence is not there.
Absolutely.
And so it's like trying to get certain people to model for me in that sense is just like, didn't work out for me at that time. Yeah. And so I switched over to landscape, and every so often I'll take a portrait of Mel, but I'm like, otherwise, I just don't have that drive. Like, there's a project that I have in mind of photographing people on the Appalachian Trail, but that's about the extent of it. Like, in terms of portrait work, just photographing them and building a story around that.
Yeah.
Everything in my mind culminates into a book at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
But
it should.
Yeah. But it's, it's still not something that I would want to make a living by doing, especially not weddings. Yeah. Weddings are you talk about the forest being chaotic. Weddings are far too chaotic.
Oh, yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah. But
do you still have the Mitacon?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice.
Yep. Yeah. I have that and the Pentax 120 macro.
Beautiful.
I mainly use the Pentax. That thing is gorgeous. It's so much fun to use, and having that 1-to-1 reproduction ratio is great because I find myself needing just a little bit I'll set up a composition and I need just a little bit more magnification
Mm-hmm.
than what like 1 to 2 would give me. I'm like, oh, cool, I have it without having to throw on an extension tube or anything like that with the Fujis. But
because I always see that Mitacon as like an environmental portrait lens, like because you always see what's the lens that's so close to. Oh,
Emmy's going off. Emmy, girlfriend just got home. So
there you go.
No, it's the Pentax 105. It's the Takamore 105 2.4.
Yeah.
It's essentially the same lens as what the Mitacon is, but or at least in terms of similar focal length, equivalent focal length, similar look to it in general. It's compared as such, but that's definitely the lens that, I mean, I used it on 2 photographs that I'm waiting to release, just of these spice bush trees that are just starting to bud. And I shot it wide open at 1.4, and just the sharpness of that lens is crazy. Yeah. It's great. It's fantastic, but it can be so difficult to nail right.
Yeah, it's impossible, really. But that look is so special.
Yeah. I really do hate the fact, though, that it doesn't have clickable aperture.
Yeah, that's a pain. Like, terrible.
I'm like, okay, so I'm shooting this wide open or somewhere between 5.6 and 8, or maybe 2. It's all over the place. I mean, it's not terrible because of working with a tripod, but you take it off the tripod and it's like, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a shot in the dark.
Yeah, it is.
I always see that with because Kyle McDougall. I bought that lens because I watched Kyle McDougall video. And, and who else did a video on that? I think it was just mainly Kyle McDougall, but his environmental portraits of people were just like, that's what I want if I ever have to take a photo of a person. I want that look.
Exactly.
And I can only imagine what that would be like for like the AT series that you want to do.
But it's weird for me to even think about starting that series because I'm like, where do I start?
Yeah.
Do I go on to make a post on the Appalachian Trails subreddit and just be like, hey, I'm a photographer. I don't have any environmental portrait work to show you, but this is the project that I want to do. Like, who in my area is willing to like meet up on a trail, or like who has done the trail and talk about it and that kind of deal? Or do I do it more so where it's much more natural and I just walk sections of the trail, just start to really focus on that, doing section hikes and just see if I stumble upon people. But then the introvert in me is like, I don't really want to talk to people.
I can't even. That's probably why I'm so bad at emails. It's just even that simple introverted nature of myself is just like afraid of saying the wrong thing and trying to explain myself to people. But I can. The beautiful thing about that lens is, even if you have no work to show for it, it's like I always tell people, just trust this lens because I'm actually doing a few photos for REI because we do the Anderson Awards every year, which is like this big employee of the year essentially thing where you pick someone that's represents the co-op way, yada yada yada, and they're sent off to Seattle and they're celebrated and whatnot. But we like to take pictures of them for like the nominations, and I've been doing a lot of those. I did them last year, and I'll probably be doing them this year. But I always just tell people, like, I don't do portraits at all. Hey, I suck at taking pictures of people, but this lens will make you beautiful and perfect in every single way, and I can't explain it, but it will look very special by the end of it. And I just, that lens is something else, despite its really cheap price.
Yeah, I was surprised when when I looked at the price of it because I bought it new. Yeah, I was like, all right, I can manage this. Yeah. And I don't think, even if after this trip to the Palouse, I end up saying screw it and I buy the 400 mil for the few times that I would actually use it, I still think that the Mitacon would be my most expensive lens. Yeah. Or at least close to it. Mm-hmm. Like because that's a nice thing about adapting lenses. Like I'm saving so much money because of that. And I'm still, realistically, I'm getting just as sharp or close to as sharp of a lens as Fuji because I'm using the sharpest points of the lens because of the smaller sensor. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It'll be good nonetheless.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
hope you enjoyed our creative banter. You can learn more about Cody's work by visiting his website, codyschultz.com. And you can find my work at benhorn.com. For further discussion, join us at patreon.com/creativebanter. It's a place where we can interact with you, the listener. And although we greatly appreciate those who contribute by joining a tier, discussions are open to everyone, whether you're a paying member or not. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you around next time.